Okay, so today we are going to be doing my September monthly wrap, talking all the books that I read in the month of September. The most recent video that I posted was my September Buddy Reads monthly wrap. I'm not going to go into too much detail with those books because I've already spent a lot of time on them. So when I do get to them, I'll let you know. Let's check out my September book reading monthly stats in 3, 2, 1, go. So, for the month of September, I read a total of 12 books comprising of 3 LGBTIQ+ books, 3 fantasies, 1 classic, 1 thriller, 1 romance, 1 contemporary, 1 horror, and 1 mystery. For my age groups, I read 4 YA, 7 adult, and 1 middle grade. For my lengths, I read 1 tome, 5 3/4 tomes, 4 half tomes, and 2 novellas, totaling 4,115 pages. To my star ratings, and I was all over the shop in September, I had 4 5 stars, 2 4 stars, 4 3 stars, 1 2 star, and for the first time in 2021, my very first 1 star. We'll talk about that one a little later on. But first, the first book that I read in the month of September was this book, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This is an adult contemporary book, and I gave this book 5 stars. I go into a lot more detail with this book, not only in my Buddy Reads monthly wrap, but I also did a spoiler-free and spoiler review of this book where I spend a ton of time talking about this one. I gave this book 5 stars. This book is filled with a ton of trigger warnings. I go into them in that spoiler-free and spoiler review, so feel free to check that out for that. It was an extremely emotional read for me, and when I got to the second page of the last chapter, I bawled my eyes out for such a long time and so loudly that I had to go back and reread the final chapter one last time. It was fantastic for me. I gave it 5 stars. The next book that I read was this book, Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. This is an adult LGBTIQ+ book, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. So the basic premise of this book is that we are following 2 boys by the name of Luke and Oliver. Yes, I had to look at the back because I read this in the first week of the month. So we follow Luke and Oliver, however, it is a singular perspective following Luke. Luke is the result of a famous rock star mother and a famous rock star father, so he is just famous by default because he is their child. He ends up working for a charity organization, but unfortunately he is covered in the press for all the wrong reasons because he is very much a wild child. His employer has told him that this seems to be ruining the donations that are coming through, and so threatens to fire him unless he smartens up his image, and it is suggested that he find a fake boyfriend. It really was a laugh riot every page, if not every second page, which was just perfect timing after reading A Little Life. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars, but I can't really say why because it would be a spoiler. Something cliche occurs around the 3/4 mark of the book that is a cliche I really don't like in books, so I did dock half a star rating for that, but otherwise 4.5 stars. It was a solid book. The next book that I read was this book, City of Fallen Angels, which is book number 4 in the Shadowhunter series by Cassandra Clare. This book did let me down quite a bit. We have a wonderful setup for this book where there is going to be a ton of action and a lot of different things that we're going to be doing, but unfortunately Cassandra Clare chose book number 4 to have our protagonist be in a lovey-dovey mood, and any chance that we could have to go off and do something action-packed was instead spent with our character looking into his gorgeous golden eyes. And it just really annoyed me because there was just so many missed opportunities because we were just sideswiped with all this romance, and it just wasn't necessary. This is just a very personal opinion, is Alec is my favorite character in the entire series. He showed up in this book maybe for a total of 10 or 20 pages, and that was it. I gave it 3 stars. The next book that I read was this book, The Memory Collectors by Kim Neville. This is an adult fantasy book with a very different magic system. The premise of this book is that it is a dual perspective. We follow 2 characters, Ev and Harriet. Ev was born with the magical ability to be able to sense emotions that are coming off of inanimate objects. She believes she is the only person in the world who has this ability, and then she comes across an older woman who also has this ability, whose name is Harriet. Harriet is a self-confessed hoarder who has the dream to open up a museum where only inanimate objects that have positive emotional energy radiating off them will be displayed so that her customers can be affected by the positive emotional energy from these objects. She ends up hiring Evelyn to go through all of her inanimate objects so that she can sort the wheat from the chaff, taking away all the negative emotional objects and only keeping the positive ones. I thought that the magic system for this book was really interesting, but the story itself really did let me down. It was an incredibly slow read. If you like slow read books, you might love this. I ended up rounding it out by giving it 3.5 stars. The next book that I read was this book, Conventionally Yours by Annabeth Albert. This is an adult LGBTIQ+ book, and I gave this book 5 stars. The premise of this book is that it is a dual perspective. We are following the perspectives of Conrad and Alden. Conrad is your typical jock athlete type guy who also just happens to be gay. Everyone knows this, everyone accepts it, which is wonderful. Moving on, we also follow Alden, who is a self-confessed nerd who loves to play the RPG card game Odyssey. So, in fact, does Conrad. So their teacher, who has set up this group where they're playing the game, Professor Tuttle, has set up tickets for everyone in the group to compete in a country-wide tournament of the game. But the only way that Alden and Conrad can get there is on a road trip. Turns out Conrad and Alden really don't like each other. So how is this road trip going to go? This was fantastic for 2 reasons. 1, there is so much more to Conrad than meets the eye. And 2, Alden has a very high amount of anxiety, and I felt that Annabeth Albert either very well researched high anxiety, or she just knows a lot about it because it was very well represented in this book. Fantastic. I highly recommend this. The next book that I read was this book, Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by authoring duo, Christina Lauren. This is an adult romance book. It is an adult straight romance book. I gave this book a very disappointing 2 stars, and let me explain why. Dual perspective, we're following Josh as well as Hazel. Hazel is extremely eccentric, and she loves that about herself, and so do I. Josh is not, but they really have a wonderful dynamic together. So they set each other up on a multitude of dates. Why? To prove that they don't need to date each other. And then, my friends, we were building up to a final climax all the way through to and including the end of the second last chapter. So the final part of the second last chapter. We get there, we're just about to head into this final climax. We are right on the cusp of it. And then Christina and Lauren decide to have a time jump. Not by a day, not by a week, not by a month, but by 6 years in time. So we don't get to experience the climax at all. All we get is the build up to the climax. And then 6 years later, we get, this is how the climax went, and this is how things are later. No. 2 stars. The next book that I read was this book, One of Us is Next by Karen M. McManus. I spoke about this book in the Buddy Reads monthly wrap. Knox, who I call my Noxie, has become my fictional boyfriend for 2021. I end up giving it 5 stars. For the next book that I read in the month of September, make sure you look, and you look very quickly, because this book is not going to remain in the frame long at all. I can't even believe I'm actually showing this book in the frame, but we'll do it extremely quickly. The next book that I read was this book, We Are Totally Normal by Naomi Kanakia. Goodbye, we're not going to be showing that book on this channel anymore, ever again. That book is a YA LGBTIQ+, and it received the very first 1 star from me for 2021. I really got to the point where I thought I would not be giving out a 1-star rating this year, but that book definitely didn't, and let me tell you why. That book is incredibly offensive to the LGBTIQ+ community, and because I am a member of said LGBTIQ+ community, I actually also found it incredibly personally offensive. So I'm not even going to give you a description of this book. You can go and check it out on Goodreads if you want. I do not believe in supporting authors who, whether they intentionally or unintentionally do this, end up producing a book that is incredibly offensive to a subset of cultures. And so that's just not going to happen for me. You're never going to hear about that book again from me. It's not even going to feature in a DNF video because I didn't DNF it, I finished it, and it's not going to appear on a bookshelf tour or anything like that. There is one video coming up on the 6th of October that you'll see where that book is there, but there's a reason why it's there, but otherwise you will never hear me talk about that book again. I'm just going to round out this mini review by saying that I have, and I need to say this because a lot of people are saying we should be defending the author, and I don't defend the author. I have no issue at all with race or anything like that. In fact, I'm all about equality for absolutely everyone. My issue with this book is the fact that it is offensive. Not because of the fact that the author has a darker color skin, not because the author is trans. I'm part of that community, LGBTIQ+. So it's not that at all. She wrote an offensive book. It's no longer going to feature on my channel. I'm sorry for getting emotional. We will move on. The next book that I read in the month of September was this book, Wanted by Sarah Shepherd. This is book number 8 in the Pretty Little Liars series and has helped me to complete a goal to read the first 8 books in that series. I've had an up and down time with this series overall, but I absolutely loved this book and I gave it an overwhelming 5 stars. Why? We got all the answers in this book. This was just phenomenal. Highly recommend this book. And I have not highly recommended the Pretty Little Liars series for a while, the book series for a while, but I highly recommend this one. This was incredible, absolutely worth every single star it received. The next book that I read was another buddy read book, so it featured in my buddy read monthly wrap, so I'll just be quick here. It was the adult classic, The Adventures of Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. The next book that I read in the month of September was this book, Goosebumps, book number 3, Monster Blood by R.L. Stine. This is a middle grade horror, and I end up giving this book 3 stars. For the most part, I'll be honest with you, that for the first 3/4 of this book, I actually felt a little too old to be reading it. It felt incredibly juvenile, which is not something that I necessarily expect from middle grade books, because I've read middle grade books where I haven't felt too old for them at all. But the final climax was really good. I really appreciated it. There was a reveal and a fake out reveal. The fake out reveal had my jaw dropping. I wish that was the real reveal. But I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I am reading books 4 and 5 in the Goosebumps series in October, so we can talk about them more over there. And the final book that I read for the month of September was not Arcanum Unbounded, but I'll put a picture over the top of it. It was this book, Sixth of the Dusk by Brandon Sanderson. This is an adult fantasy book, and I gave this book 3 stars. So, the premise of this book is that we are following a guy by the name of Dusk. His full name is Sixth of the Dusk, hence the title. That's our character's name. There's not a lot I can tell you because it is a novella, but I guess I can say that Sixth of the Dusk is going into the jungle on a deserted island because he is searching for something. The magic system was absolutely fantastic and so different to any other magic system I've experienced. Brandon Sanderson has so many magic systems, and he still came up with an individual, original idea, which was having birds possess magical abilities, and when humans make a connection to these birds, they can access this magical ability. I really appreciated that. I also love the world building. This book is set around this one island, but this island is a full-on jungle. And I'm starting to think that maybe I'm someone who loves jungle reads. So if you have any jungle reads that you can recommend to me that is highly descriptive about being in a jungle, please let me know, because that was just so exciting for me to read. But the story itself did let me down. Magic system was great, world building was great, story itself wasn't really a fan of, so I averaged it out to 3 stars. And now for everyone's favourite game that we like to call these are the books that I read in the month of September 2021. What books did you read in the month of September? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching. Good night, and happy reading!